Welcome back, everyone. This is Eric Glazer with the Ambassador David Eby and Mr. Greg Roth. This is your Sharp Squares podcast for week 2 of the NFL season 2024-25. Last week, we got our butts kicked. Our Sharps were 37%, 20 and 34 in week 1. We were 3-4 in our medal games. Pick 5, we were 1-4. 3-2-1, 1-2, 1-6 as far as points go. Greg,
bad beat. Can we complain about a bad beat? The Titans and Bears. The Titans were up. Titans were one of our picks at +4.5. They led the game 17-0, and they lost 24-17. Did not cover. In that situation, dogs of 4+ points to lead by 17 or more points at any point in the game were 61-1-1. 61-1-1 against the spread since 2019. Now 66-2-1. We have one of those two losses. I can't remember going back to the other loss, which was a Houston KC game in 2020. We might have had that loss as well, Eric.
It's rough. All right. And by the way, in our little producers pool where we pick every game against the spread, EB over there he won the week. 63%, Dave?
62.5%. I like to round up to 63.
I'm fading him. I'm going to fade him.
Enough about us. Let's get into it. A lot of interesting picks this week. They're going to be painful, guys. So strap in, and gals. We're going to take it like adults. And now to give you all the information you're here for, the best picks from the most trusted sharps, everyone's favorite fellow degenerate, the Greg Roth.
Eric, thank you so much. There are 5 medal games this week. 5 medal games, one goal.
These are rough.
First of all, they're all underdogs. Last week, though, I think they were all underdogs. So I don't know what that means, but they're all underdogs again. Take it however you want. One of those games is gold. There are no silver games, and there are 4 bronze games. The picks, the gold game. It is the New York Giants. They're +1.5 in Washington to take on the Commanders. Rob Pizzola, Whale Capper, Mike Lombardi, Cleve TA, Scott Seidenberg, and Mackenzie Rivers. They're all on the Giants. There was a pick from Todd Wishnow on the Commanders, but Eric, Todd Wishnow we don't track his picks. He did pick the Commanders. I'm reporting the news, but he's not really in the algorithm, or is he in the algorithm?
He's not in the algorithm, but we do cover him because he's in a show we cover. We may add him to the algorithm. Would be interested in what people thought about that. Hit us up.
There are no silver games, and there are 4 bronze games. The top-ranked bronze game, the pick, is the Green Bay Packers. They're +3.5, a home dog welcoming the Indianapolis Colts. Stuckey and Favorites podcast picked the Packers, but Fabian Summer and Scott Seidenberg both picked the Colts. The second bronze game, the picks, the Cincinnati Bengals. They're +5.5 in Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Ross Tucker, Joe Ranieri, Chris Raybon, Tommy the Hitman. The Favorites podcast and Scott Seidenberg all took Cincinnati. RJ Bell was the lone dissenter on the Chiefs. The third bronze game, the pick, is the Las Vegas Raiders. They're +9.5, traveling all the way to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. RJ Bell, Will Capper, Cleve TA all picked the Raiders. Gil Alexander did take the Ravens. The last bronze game, the pick, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're +7.5. They're in Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions. Well, Ross Tucker and Will Capper both picked Tampa Bay. Nobody picked the Lions. Eric, our picks, Pick five, very easy. Five medal games. Those are our pick five. New York Giants +1.5, Packers +3.5, Bengals +5.5, Raiders +9.5, Buccaneers +7.5. Do have one question for you. Packers was our second highest rated game at +3.5. It's a nice home dog, but we had two sharps on Green Bay and two sharps on Colts. But somehow Green Bay was our second highest rated game. Can you explain?
DraftKings line, guys, and 3-2-1 for that matter. We got 3.5. The line moved to 3. It still is at 3. At that point, that's when our sharps took it. They took it at 3. So you could probably figure out with the line adjustment through that big number of 3.5 and 3. The two guys that took the game at 3 got extra juice. The two guys that took the game at -3 got extra juice against it, and the Delta provided us with a medal game.
3-2-1. The Giants remain our top rated game in 3-2-1 as well at +1.5. The Packers, the aforementioned Packers, they dropped to our 1-point game at +3.5. Our 2-point game, a bit of a surprise. The Minnesota Vikings, they go from non-medal status all the way to the number 2 game in 3-2-1 at +6.5. Let me set up that game for you quickly. Steve Fezzik, Marco D'Angelo, and Ross Tucker all took the Vikings, or home dogs, welcoming the San Francisco 49ers. So, Eric, same difference there. In DraftKings, I think the Vikings are +5.5, and 3-2-1, we're getting 6.5. That movement and those three sharps allowed Minnesota to go from non-medal status using the DraftKings line all the way to the 2-point game in 3-2-1.
All right, good stuff, scary stuff. If all you're looking for are the picks, you are all now dismissed. But if you're looking now for some details of the rationale behind those picks and you want to stick around for some trends and some handicapping highlights, here we go. I'll start us off with some trends. This is from Lock and Cash Sports. You can find them on X at Lock and Cash. Their trend is buy low and sell high. Road teams off a non-cover. These are teams on the road this week that didn't cover last week, and they are playing a team that did cover. Those road teams are 60.7% against the number. That's 54, 35, and 2. To make it easy for you, Bengals, Rams, Seahawks, Browns, Falcons.
From Bet Labs, I've got a couple of very easy to understand trends. In the last 10 years, when two undefeated teams play in week 2, the home team has gone 25-12 against the spread. That's 68%. So, of course, that means this week the Cowboys hosting the Saints, the Lions at home against Tampa Bay, the Vikings welcoming the 49ers, Patriots at home against Seattle, and then Texans versus Chicago, Texans being the home team there. The other trend we have is since 2003, when two winless teams play in week 2. These are winless teams now. The underdog has gone 50, 25, and 3. That's 67% against the spread. So the underdogs in these week 2 games you'll want to consider putting your money on are the Giants, Packers, Browns, Raiders, Titans, and Rams.
And that's all compliments of Bet Labs.
Our sharps top game of the week, it's the New York Giants. They're +1.5 in Washington to take on the Commanders. The theme, no matter how bad the Giants seem, which they seem pretty bad, the Commanders are always worse when they play each other. Always worse is not really always. It's more like recent history worse, always worse in that matchup. From Rob Pizzola, forward progress. Although Daniel Jones has had a rough start to a season, really a rough start, really a rough career other than that 1 year. Against a skilled Minnesota defense in week 1, the New York Giants quarterback has consistently found success against the Commanders throughout his career. Giants faced a Brian Flores defense last week, and most teams struggle against Flores. The Commanders' defense is terrible, according to Rob Pizzola. Scott Seidenberg. Daniel Jones is 6-1 against the spread when he plays against the Commanders. Additionally, Giants head coach Brian Daboll has been successful against Washington as an underdog. Daboll as a dog to Washington in all 4 games in his 2 years as head coach of New York is 4-0 against the spread, covering by an 11 points per game margin. After a straight-up loss, Coach Daboll is 13-5 against the spread, including 4 straight wins in this scenario. That's from Scott Seidenberg. From Mackenzie Rivers, also the Dream Preview, he says Daboll 19-11 against the spread as a dog in his career. Dan Quinn, the Commanders coach, as a favorite in his career, is only 21-32 against the spread. Washington at home is 41% against the spread since 2012. Timestamps. Dream Preview. There are 2 Dream Previews this week, so 25 minutes, 41 seconds. I don't know which one that would be. Eric, maybe
it's probably the first one.
First one that they drop, and then the second one, which is just the picks, I believe. 28 minutes, 15 seconds. Forward Progress, 51 minutes, 20 seconds. GM Shuffle, 46 minutes, 50 seconds. Beating the Book, 1 hour, 5 minutes, 10 seconds.
Next game, Colts plus 3.5. This is the game where we just had a 2-on-2, so it's a pretty equal handicap. Stay tuned. The theme here, if you're pro Packers, is this is a classic overreaction to week 1 results. Backup QB playing in this first game, overreaction there too. And if you're also pro Packers, there was not much thought about the Colts defense heading into the season, and they're coming off a game where they're on the field now for 40 minutes, so that does fare much better for a Packers team that is now well rested coming off a road game. So here we go. Stuckey from the Action Network thinks that the line is over-adjusted due to the Jordan Love injury. Prior to the injury, the look-ahead line favored the Packers by 5 points. Does Jordan Love account for more than a TD worth of points? Stuckey doesn't think so. He has this game as a pick-em. He thinks Love's injury should be about 5 points. The favorites, Colts D is bad and their secondary is banged up and they couldn't get off the field last week. Backup QBs in their first start as a dog, guys, are 57% ATS the last 3 seasons. LaFleur is also the second best coach ATS over the last 5 years. If you are looking for reasons to take the Colts, Scott Seidenberg from the Dream Preview, fading Mark Willis, getting the start, not proven he is a capable QB. The Colts haven't won in week 1 since 2013 with Andrew Luck. They're 2-14-1 straight up and ATS in week 1 since 2008, guys. But then in week 2, they're 13-8 the last 21 years, 6-1 ATS the last 7 years. Fabian Summer from Forward Progress. Backup QBs can be successful, but Willis has a big enough sample size that teams can scheme against them, have enough film, so the advantage there has been nullified. Timestamps for this game. Action Network, 16 minutes, 55 seconds. The favorites, 33 minutes. Forward Progress, no timestamp. And the Dream Preview, 13 minutes.
And we've got now the Bengals at the Chief. The pick is Bengals plus 5.5. The theme here is, despite the Bengals' slow start to the season last week, this should be another close game between these two AFC foes. Chris Raybon from the Action Network, he pointed out that Cincinnati got very unlucky last week with losing one fumble in the end zone and a touchdown called back. So he expects them to play better and have more luck this week. All 4 meetings between these two quarterbacks have been decided by 3 points or less. And Joe Burrow has covered the spread in each of those 4 games. Now, Burrow is also 15-3 against the spread as an underdog of more than 3 points, which, of course, we have in this game. Hitman from Forward Progress points out that the Bengals' offensive line allowed the least amount of pressure in week 1, so that's something to hang your hat on in week 2 if you're a Bengals fan. And then from the Favorites podcast, Chad and Simon, they like the Bengals. Chad says this was a 3.5-point spread on the look-ahead line, and now it's 5.5. And he points out that Patrick Mahomes, as a favorite of more than 3 points, is only 48% against the spread. Finally, he says this is a perfect overreaction spot. The Chiefs looked good last week, and the Bengals looked horrible. Simon says this is his bet of the week. Bengals +6, actually. That's the number he got. He's concerned with Burrow's wrist. Not sure it's healed yet. Maybe he saw that video that was going around of Burrow's trying to pick up a bottle of Gatorade. Everyone is anti-Bengals right now, he says, after them getting burned last week. So, common theme we hear amongst all of the handicappers. Timestamps, bet on at 37 minutes. Even money, 23 minutes, 25 seconds. Action Network, 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Forward Progress, 35 minutes, 34 seconds. And the favorites, 43 minutes and 5 seconds.
Great job, guys. Thanks to all of our producers. Shout out to Cesar Del Castillo, who's been doing all of our editing and post-production since we started the show, and who I failed to mention yesterday when I thanked everyone. Just a reminder, none of us are truly sharp. But this is your Sharp Squares podcast.
Good luck out there.